All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining the local government energy reporting workshop. Very excited to share this information with those of you who this is new information for you, and those of you who are just joining for a refresher. Um, First, I'm going to go over a few things, and then we'll get straight into the information. And then also during this presentation, if any time that you have questions, please put it in the chat or in the Q&A. And I am producing this as well, so I will try to do my best to keep on checking that. So this is supported, the City Efficiency Leadership Coalition is supported by SPEER, the organization I work for as the Senior Government and Outreach Program Manager, as well as the State Energy Conservation Office and the Houston Advanced Research Center. So thank you to those agencies in supporting furthering energy efficiency throughout the state of Texas. A little bit about the organization I work with. I work for the SPEER. So SPEER is short for the South Central Partnership for Energy Efficiency as a Resource. Our mission is to accelerate the adoption of energy efficient products and services in Texas and Oklahoma. And we do this by building and leading diverse partnerships among all stakeholders, providing science-based resources and trainings for our membership and partners, and promoting policies that advance energy efficiency technology, research, and other innovations. We're also a part of the Regional Energy Efficiency Organization, known as RIOs. We're one of 6 across the nation. And again, we cover Texas and Oklahoma. These specific webinars and trainings are supported by the State Energy Conservation Office for the state of Texas, but the information is pretty relevant to other states as well. So what we do is we also cover building codes. We work with code officials, builders, and contractors to educate the industry about the requirements and compliance with energy code through outreach, education, and collaboration. Thanks to our work, the work of our partners, 90% of permits issued in Texas are now issued under the 2015 IECC or equivalent. We also have the Building Operator Certification Program, known as the BOC. It's a training program based on the U.S. Department of Energy's 2011 skill standard for operating engineers and building technicians. The program's created and validated by industry experts and practitioners and requires the completion of hands-on projects for certification. And according to one study, the average savings per participant is $10,500 or more annually. And then policy. Our roots are in our policy work, and we are doing quite a bit of work right now with the Texas legislature. And feel free to go to our website and you can see our priorities list. And then finally, local governments. My work is primarily focused on developing a peer-to-peer network with resources to support public sector energy efficiency projects. A lot of that is getting to know what cities are working on and encouraging the dissemination of best practices or insights from other entities in the region who have completed similar work. So housekeeping, a few announcements before we get started is that questions, again, welcome in the chat. And that is going to look like, if you look at the bar of your Zoom, it's going to have a question and also say Q&A. And just click on that and throw your questions in there. I'm happy to pause and check that throughout my presentation. And then I also have a few poll questions I'm going to ask. There's also a chat box. You all are generally muted, but you can raise your hand or send comments or questions in the chat feature and we can address them. And if there's any other announcements, feel free to put them in the chat box and I'll release them. And then finally, this particular presentation, you will not be receiving any ICC CEU specifically because it's regarding reporting, not necessarily content that's focused on code, but we do upload this presentation within 3 days, so that you'll be able to find it on our YouTube channel. Okay. All right. Finally, we have a substantial number of events that occur, and please check out our website. I think I have all the events that I've organized up and going for registration up until even mid-April. There's a conference we're organizing specifically for higher education. If you're interested in checking that out with the Texas Energy Advocate University program, that's run April 8th. And then we also have several resources available for local governments, including an energy adoption toolkit, templates and messaging guides for policy, and then of course our YouTube channel. All right, well, we're gonna get started. So I want to first ask this question. Why does local government energy reporting exist? Here I have a picture of a city here in the state of Texas that looks very smoggy. There's not a lot of clarity in the skyline. You know, kind of ask yourself, what city this is, but also, what does ozone pollution look like in non-attainment areas in the state? We are not quite in ozone season. That will be occurring, closer to May and June in the summer season. But ozone pollution does affect our residents of the state. And that's the biggest factor about why local government energy reporting exists. Comes down to is that 7 million premature deaths annually, and that's by the World Health Organization, is linked to COPD, respiratory infections, asthma, heart disease, and lung cancer. So chronic exposure to pollutants reduces life expectancy and leads to excess mortality. To talk a little bit more about that and lead up to why we have energy reporting required in the state of Texas. This gives you some data, right? I am a person who clearly I believe in this work and how much it's connected to the human component. I think it's important to us not to look at just numbers, but realize the human component across why this work is so important. So if we look at the first image of the state of Texas, the non-attainment counties and air quality in 2023, what you're going to see is that the non-attainment counties also include 70% of the Texas population are located in our urban, high populated regions. And so then you look at the COPD hospitalizations by county, and you start to see some synergy between where the non-attainment region is located, as well as where the hospitalizations are occurring with COPD. And then you also look over there at asthma hospitalizations by county, and you can see some correlations as well. So a little bit about pollutants and health effects. So the type of pollutants that are in our air with poor air quality is lead, ozone, sulfur dioxide, and PM10 and carbon monoxide. We're going to, of course, include this PowerPoint, and you can also watch it another time. So I'm not going to go through and read everything, but just to kind of give you some highlights with carbon monoxide, we all know it reduces the amount of oxygen that can be transported in the bloodstream, and it's critical for your organs like the heart and the brain. And so people with some types of heart disease and cardiovascular problems are concerned about carbon monoxide. And then we also have, ozone. Exposure to ozone can increase the frequency of asthma attacks, cause shortness of breath, aggravated lung disease, and permanently damage the lungs. Elevated ozone levels are linked to increases in emergency room visits and premature deaths. So with that, we ask ourselves, well, what regions in the state of Texas have been designated as non-attainment regions by the federal government? And so we have a list here. It's up to 41 counties. And so we have here is the county name and what pollutant and by what years. So now, last but not least, here we are at the local government energy reporting. So it's required by section 388.005 by the Texas Health and Safety Code. Okay. The purpose was to aid efforts to attain federal air quality standards by reducing demand for electricity generation. Electricity generation. I do not have that map, but I think I'll probably post it the next time I provide this workshop. But if you overlaid where most of our electricity generation is occurring, you're going to see it in the same regions of our non-attainment counties, right? You need the electricity generation to support the high populations. So, who reports for this energy reporting requirement? It's political subdivisions, institutes of higher education, or state agencies in the 41 affected counties in Texas. So, those include cities, counties, water districts, and other local government entities. So, also including universities that are publicly funded by the state of Texas. So its requirements are to establish a goal of reducing electric consumption by at least 5% each state fiscal year for 7 years, beginning September 1st, 2019. And then also to submit an annual report to SECO regarding the progress and the efforts to meet the reduction goal. A little bit about the history and background. I like to have more of a context about what's going on here. So this started in 2001. Texas was pretty much a front runner on kind of moving and thinking about air quality. It was a requirement that introduced in the 77th legislative session by Senate Bill 5 was established to reduce air emissions associated with electricity consumption in ozone non-attainment or near non-attainment counties. Then in 2007, they established an extension for entities to establish a goal to reduce electric consumption by 5% out to 2011. So you're seeing the pattern here, right? And so they went back to the legislator in 2011 and they passed Senate Bill 898 for the continuance of establishing an energy reduction goal out to 2021. And they also allowed for exemption certification requests. I'll talk a little bit more about that later in my presentation. And then in 2019, Senate Bill 241 was passed, and the 86th legislator was setting 2019 as the baseline year because they didn't establish a baseline year for the 5% reduction goal. And so they also extended the timeline for the local governments to establish a goal to reduce electric consumption out to 2026. And here we are in 2025. And so they are going back to the legislature to see if we can go ahead and extend out the requirements to establish a goal to reduce electric consumption, as well as the 5% reduction goal. So we'll see what happens. So, what's the impact and what's the process? What happens once you submit your data? And so, you submit your data to the State Energy Conservation Office. SECO has partnered and is working with the Texas A&M Energy Systems Laboratory, also known as ESL. And what they do is they process the data and they analyze it and see what is something that they can utilize to move forward. And what they do is they estimate the total NOx reductions by the local governments and agencies that reported, and then they submit that information to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, also known as TCEQ. So in 2019, they looked at 1.58 tons per day of NOx was reduced. I don't have the updated numbers for 2024, but because, of course, you still have to report on that. So I'll need to update that for 2023. TCEQ, what they do with the information is then they include the reduction in the Texas Emissions Reduction Plan, also known as TERP, and the biennial report to the Texas legislature. And then that's utilized for strategic planning for air quality initiatives and programs. So a little bit about, as you can see, once the State Energy Conservation Office pivoted to an online platform for reporting and increase in outreach and local government reporting, local government reporting did become more accessible. There are several opportunities for improvement with outreach with various entities. And as you can see, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for reporting. So, of course, in 2019, it was 179 reports. And that's also when the North Central Texas Council of Government and SPEER began outreach and technical assistance. It was in 2019. Then in 2020, it went up to 286 reporting agencies. And then 2021, it went back down to 189. So it's an influx in 2022, 263. And that's also, we have new agencies as well as the Alamo Area Council of Governments. They're also assisting and providing technical assistance for local governments for reporting. And we're hoping that we can get more local governments reporting in the coming year for 2024. What's the impact when you put together all this effort and energy for getting information on your energy consumption and utilities? Well, and if what you don't know, you don't know. So, and effectively, you can help manage energy consumption informed by your data collection. And I know that those of you probably already know that, but I have also seen a lot of programming get begin to take form and shape once they have a more informed information through data collection. Also, the ability to measure performance among peer entities using SECO's energy consumption reporting dashboard, which I will guide you on how to utilize that. And then also identify opportunities for energy efficiency projects. And then also pursue no-cost technical assistance and resources through SECO to accomplish energy efficiency projects. And I'll also talk about that a bit more. All right, so now I'm going to kind of go into resources that are out there for you before I jump into walking through the report itself. And the reason being is because the report itself is a static platform called SurveyMonkey. And so it's really important to have all your information organized before you approach it to start the process of providing your data and information and submitting the report. If you will give me one moment, I am going to show you the energy reporting FAQ guide in real time. And this is with SPEER. So, and while we're taking this moment, is there any questions that anyone has? I'm going to answer this live, but what are the ramifications for failing to submit the report? So, great question. There are no ramifications for failure to submit the report. So the report is voluntarily submitted. There are no kind of what you would call sticks. There are only carrots. So if you have the information about what your consumption and utility usage from energy and water and also from your renewables, you're then going to be able to make some informed decisions moving forward. But there are no ramifications. I will say though, if you don't submit your information, then the TERP report is not going to have your NOx reduction info in it and so be included in it. So the picture that's being provided to the state and making informed decisions is not going to always be as clear as it should be. Any other questions before I move on? Well, here you go. So do you see right there is a website? It's the website from SPEER. It's our under our local government portion of the web page. But what I want to showcase to you is very specific, and the aspect is it's all the questions, such as the one that you just asked. That if, what is local government energy reporting? What's the definition? How do you access your report from previous years? You can click right here and we will provide you all the answers to that. So it's a really great resource that you can find out the answers and really have a breakdown. But The other aspect about this is fantastic is here. It breaks down each section of the report. So if you had questions like who should be on the contact information, what the reduction goal is, it will answer those questions for you as well. So now that you can of course get the information from our presentation and our workshops, but it also has all the information here for you. Okay. So I wanted to showcase that. Oh, we have a raised hand, so hold on one second. So here's our website, right? And so there's the energy report FAQ guide that I just showcased. And then gives you the information so you can copy and paste the 388.005. But I wanted to showcase this right here. It's the reporting template. When you click on it, it's going to download an Excel spreadsheet. And let's see, if you don't see my screen, let me know so I can go ahead and make sure I'm doing that correctly. All right, so what I have here is a resource I wanted to showcase with everyone. And the reason being is when you do this work of gathering all this data, you are really, in essence, going to have to be highly organized because I also know that life has challenges and changes. So, for example, if you're the person filing the report this year, you may not be the person next year. You may be the manager who is filing the report to see what the experience is going to be like, how many hours to allocate, and then you're going to delegate it to someone else. So, it's really important to kind of keep track of that information and also be able to pass this on, right? So you can have your standing operating procedure and what this is also important is because the first question, like in section 1 of the report, it's going to look for contact information. And again, with the FAQ, we're looking at contacts are who's going to be the best person to reach out to after the report is submitted, because this gets published online. So if you're going to be a person who isn't going to be the best one to get a hold of and best contact, I would put who the best contact should be. Okay, so that's something to remember and think about because this again will be published. So what we've done here is outlined every single section and a space for you to put the data. Again, we're utilizing SurveyMonkey for the report through the State Energy Conservation Office. So once you get started, put all your phone calls to silent. Make sure that you have the time and space because you might need 15 to 20 minutes with no interruptions because again, it's a SurveyMonkey form. So if you don't continue to input the information, it could automatically pause or you'd have to start over again. So I highly recommend is putting all your data and putting it kind of in a spreadsheet form. If this doesn't work for you, you can always create something else, but we already have something that's outlined with how you would like to put the information. And then you can also have all this data so you can submit that to who's going to be the person delegated to do it the next year. And so they can also follow that format, but already I'll have all the information in front of them so they understand and can work and move forward for the next year for 2025. So, so it breaks it down all in the spreadsheet. All right. And then the other thing I wanted to show you all is specifically with the website. So with that, I am going to show you the SECO's website. So with the SECO's website, what you would do, you can click here, is the energy consumption dashboard. Again, has the requirement for why you have to report. Again, you are not required. There is no repercussions for not reporting. Um, again, has a list of who is supposed to report. This is the link that you use to submit your report. And then you have the links for reporting assistance. Again, it's listed the North Central Texas Council of Governments and SPEER as well as a resource, and who you can contact for more information. This is where you would also go to find out if you just got notified and you had never reported before, or if you're like, I think that we've reported, but I don't really remember. You would go to this dashboard. And there you can then just select your agency. We're going to go ahead, for example, we'll select, I live here in Austin, so I'm going to select the city of Austin as our example. And here we have that they reported. So when you select the agency, it will automatically have it to where you can see what years have been reported. So they reported in 2020. And it looks as though it was reported by another agency within them. And so I guess it looks like Fred assisted them in their reporting. I'm going to go ahead and we'll use another example. I'm trying to think of a great example. Oh, City of Louisville. They are rock stars and have been doing this for quite some time. So give me a second. You can also hit there and I can just type in Louisville. So we got City of Louisville. I select them and they have been reporting almost every year. So we can hit select all. And then the next step is you see is where they'll have who reported, who's the contact person, their phone number. So if you had questions and you wanted to reach out to like your sister city, you could do that. But you also want to know all the data, right? So there's different ways you can explore the dashboard. But for this situation, I'm just going to go straight to showing data table. And then you see this small icon that says send to Excel. You just click on that and you hit export and then hit OK. And you will automatically get downloaded the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so you can go send to Excel and it will also automatically download the spreadsheet for you. Okay, and that's important so that way you know what data has been presented in the years past. If you haven't presented data to SECO before or submitted the data, then this is a great way to find out if it has been submitted before. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, and I see that there's more questions in the chat. All right, here's the question. Is the energy reduction expectation of 5% averaged? Just wondering if energy saving measures are implemented and have significant impact in a single year, but the following years of energy consumption is steady. Does that still hit the target? So they're looking at the State Energy Conservation Office. They're looking at from year to year if there was that 5% reduction rate. And I know that that is sometimes hard to meet, right? Especially as a local government or a city, and we're always expanding services or getting a new building. That's why they have the 2019 baseline created so that you look at 2019, you had 20 buildings, and then in 2019, those 20 buildings, you used a certain amount of energy. And then in 2020, you look at the same number of buildings and look at the amount of energy that was consumed for 2020. So hopefully that makes sense and answers your question. And then the other aspect too is if you don't hit that 5% reduction goal, there are spaces where you can add the information, right? Because in one year, you may have a stronger reduction, right? You might have a reduction by 15% because you just installed LED lighting system, which is a great low-hanging fruit, and it also has a significant change in energy consumption. So those aspects you can notate in your energy report. And there's all kinds of great information on the dashboard that other local governments have submitted. And so you can look and see what did they use as their examples, or what did they state for their reduction. And so you can also go, okay, well, City of Flower Mound is a lot like our city with population and growth. So let's look at them and see what they've been doing for energy reduction. How much energy do they consume? Do they have a renewable program? Those kind of questions. Okay. Um, so I will go back to sharing screen. I will walk through everything. Okay. Again, please continue to put questions in the chat and I will check. Um, and if y'all have anything that you want to add in the chat, please do. And actually, at this moment, I am going to ask a question of you all. Um, so, oh, dang nabbit, I put the poll together, but for some reason it didn't save earlier. Um, well, we'll go ahead and move forward. So here we are, the local government reporting form. What you're going to see when you get started, there are several sections, as I had shown you in the spreadsheet that SPEER has created. There's sections from 1 through 9, and sections 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 9, and portions of section 4 must be completed by all reporting entities. So it will be required. You won't be able to move forward without submitting a response. Section 5, the renewable energy data is optional. So getting started, again, create the data checklist. Utilize the spreadsheet that we have put together, or you can create what works best for you, but create a checklist. And there's also a reporting help guide that you can utilize. Know your data sources. So there are different places you can gather your data, but understand that, okay, where you are, maybe you're a county, so you will have most likely several different utilities that you'll have to contact to get your data and your information. In Travis County, there is Austin Energy and Pedernales Electric Utility. And then also, like, looking at natural gas, we would have to approach Atmos, or we'd also have to approach just Texas Gas. So know your data sources. And then also keep your data organized, consistent, and tidy. So that way you can also share what you did with a colleague or who you're going to delegate it to. But then also just keep it tidy so that way, whenever you're looking at all these numbers, that it's clear and concise and less likely to have any errors. And then also prep for the next year now. So those are some getting started tips. Background information. That's the first section. You're going to look at, again, your city information. Ensure to update contact information for those who will be completing next year's reporting. Again, this information does get used, and it can be utilized not just by the State Energy Conservation Office whenever they're reaching out to examine the data, or ESL with Texas A&M and reaching out and saying, hey, I had some questions, but also local governments and other agencies saying, hey, I had questions. You said that you did this. Can you tell me more about it? And then section 2, reduction goal. It's a really simple one, yes or no. So, the goal can take several different forms. The city of Denton, they historically did this through a council resolution. And then also this updates with each new iteration of the Senate bill to reflect length of time and start date. So also examine that, next year. So of course, do you have a reduction goal? Yes or no? You don't necessarily need to have a policy. It can just be a resolution, such as what City of Denton creates. Now, Section 3, reporting period. So before, SECO would say it could just be for your fiscal year, but now they're requesting for calendar year. I know that this doesn't line up with how you all usually manage your data. I know it's a little bit frustrating, but it really should be aligned with calendar year. As you stated, January data or December data may overlap into other months, so kind of be thoughtful about that. And when you start your start date, the current practice for the city of Denton was to split months based on meter read date, so before or after the 15th of the month. It still would be considered calendar year. Okay, and then section 4, consumption data. This is really kind of, I have a checklist you can look at, but have a checklist in that section to make sure that you have all your data sources, what you'll need, organize the data. You can do also organize it by what you'll need for if you have to report for Senate Bill 241. And then get informed about account changes. So if you all are changing accounts with someone or changing utility providers, make sure that you're up to date with that. And so good friends do have is in your auditor's office as well as in risk management. So, and like I just said, good friends to have as risk management, they'll give you the idea for all the buildings, what buildings to include. And when we're talking about buildings, the consumption data is including buildings that are air conditioned spaces. Okay, so they're not looking at buildings that aren't unair conditioned. We're looking at air conditioned spaces. And again, because those buildings tend to use more energy to support them. Keep the building codes in mind when you're putting this information together. And then with lighting, metered versus unmetered, owned versus unowned. If you don't own your lighting system or your street lights, then don't include it. You don't need to. The State Energy Conservation Office is only interested in the what you oversee in your operations and pay for. Right? The goal is to reduce consumption of energy for governmental operations of facilities. And then water and wastewater. You may or may not have a treatment plan to report. Most agencies will have pumps and lift stations to report. Okay. It looks like there's another question in the chat. It can be in line with Energy Star portfolio. Yes. Yes, it is aligned with Energy Star portfolio, but it is a separate report that you have to provide. Okay, consumption data. Again, if it doesn't have an asterisk next to the row for data, then that means it's not required. Okay, so right here, section 4, this information is not required, but they are requesting it. If you don't have this data, just put NA, or you can put unknown. But with the natural gas, check your units. There are 2 different ways that natural gas can be reported by an agency. And then different data sets than electricity. So make sure that you have the information in a different data set, because it does not equal out to the energy. So you're looking at BTUs versus wattage. And then the data storage step have at least one leaking data field. So have the address linked. So whenever you're looking at your spreadsheet or your data. And then water usage, billing category versus usage category. And then this is where I get a lot of questions as well, is regarding renewable energy data. With renewable energy data, again, it's not required. If your agency does not have any renewables, then you don't have to put this in. You can leave it blank or just say NA. But it is covering solar, wind, biomass, or geothermal. Also, a side note, there it also requests if you have a purchasing agreement to purchase a certain percentage of green energy, this is where you would include that information and include it in additional comments. So you could also have your on-site summary, like an entity energy footprint included, or a PPA summary included in this as well. But if you don't have any renewable energy information, you don't need to supply it. And then this is a section that you will most definitely need to select. It will not let you move on if you do not select. If you and it's from planning to not interested, but just kind of go through there and go, are you interested in getting a preliminary energy assessment? I highly recommend APIAs as what they're known as. And I'll kind of go over, I think I have an example of APIA, but that is a fantastic resource for agencies to get consulting services supported by the State Energy Conservation Office, and they go through and provide you a report on low-hanging fruit, how to approach it, and provide great information on your first steps, and really kind of doing a first step evaluation and recommissioning of your facilities. It's pretty fantastic, a great opportunity. And then technical assistance is where you can get guidance on a specific project, right? So if you wanted to approach your courthouse and see what kind of energy efficient mechanisms you could implement on this specific building, then that's where I would go for the technical assistance. And then there's the Lone Star financing, and that resource is where you get a low interest loan that is then paid back to the State Energy Conservation Office through your energy savings. Denton, they had a great, they utilized their preliminary energy assessment to also further some of their energy plans and policies. Uh, and I see there's a couple of questions here, so I'll go ahead and see if does anyone else have any other questions before I move forward? So we're getting really kind of close to the end of the report, and then I'll go over the things I just mentioned for the resources. Um, so in section 7 and 8, this is areas of improvement in progress. And again, I may have stated this before, I may not have, but there, as you're going through this report, there's going to be sections where you can add comments. So I would recommend, again, to have all those comments, have the language for those comments ready and your spreadsheet before you approach submitting the report. So here, this is an example from Denton's PIA, and you can also utilize and get a PIA, and then the following year you could say, this is what we've gone through in our process. And it's a great way to demonstrate to the State Energy Conservation Office that you are doing all that you can for your 5% reduction. So there's different ways that you could look at physical upgrades, HVAC, insulation, management systems. Can also demonstrate that you have been making progress, and that's just through policies and training. What kind of trainings have you put your facilities department staff through? Is there an internal energy policy for your agency? Denton, they incorporated into their monthly safety training. In the past, they'll do some trainings on energy efficiency. I know Travis County, what they did is they incorporated it into some of their new employee orientation on some of the policies and their requirements, and then what they do to save energy as an agency. So I'll go over next is the exemption request. And currently, SPEER, we're putting together an analysis of the number of agencies requesting an exemption request. I will say that, I would err away from requesting an exemption because this is a great tool to further opportunities and initiatives for energy efficiency mechanisms within your agency. But if you request an exemption, then, I just would, what they're doing is asking, did you reach your goal? Calculate based on 2019 baseline totals. You claim exemptions if applicable after the report has been completed, because you really don't know until you kind of go through the process and gather your data. Um, so I'll go over some key takeaways, but I also want to pause. Are there any other questions you may have? Okay. So, next steps and takeaways. This report is due March 4th. So, March 4th, 2025. Sometimes they change the date. So, it always, and when I say they, the State Energy Conservation, SECO, State Energy Conservation Office. So I would double check. Usually they don't. It's been for the past 2 years. It's been on March 4th, but always check and see when it's going to be required to be submitted. Again, the calendar year reporting period is January 1st to December 31st. And then the minimum required data points include the time frame. So you gotta really follow that. Annual electricity consumption in kilowatt hours, the gross square footage of all entity-owned buildings and facilities. Again, on that, it's the gross square footage of all entity-owned air-conditioned buildings and facilities. And then also you can review prior reporting data on the SECO's energy consumption reporting dashboard. I'm going to also use this opportunity to kind of go over these great resources that are available to agencies. And that one, again, I had mentioned before, is a preliminary energy assessment. It's where they offer cost-effective resource efficiency measures that entities can implement, and it's at no cost for you. So again, it's a third-party consulting agency hired by the State Energy Conservation Office. They help guide the development of an energy management policy. They provide facility benchmarking using Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and then recommended maintenance procedures, as well as develop efficiency level guidelines for equipment purchases. I highly recommend going through the process for a PIA, but I will say that sometimes there are challenges because of the people that you need to get to sign off on moving forward with this. So it's the agency that has the authority. So that could be, if you're a county, you might have to approach the judge's office to sign off, or of course the facilities department, and then go to the judge's office. For the city council, there may be an internal policy to where the facilities department director can just sign off on these type of things. So really explore who would be the signatory for this to move forward with this type of opportunity. And then the technical assistance services. This is where an engineer comes out to your agency and does an assessment of your buildings and puts together a report. Sometimes what comes from this is also a great opportunity for a meter audit. So you have a better understanding of the meters that you have and which ones you're not using. Sometimes it's really great to understand which ones are connected to which buildings. So through this program, SECO contracts with the engineering firm to provide you customized on-site energy-related services ranging from basic consultation to feasibility studies, right? So, really examining recommissioning opportunities. You can request assistance with either energy or water related technical matters. And I highly recommend with water because there's some strong energy savings there as well. And then upon determination that the requested services are reasonable and within the contractor's scope of work, SECO will assign an engineer to contact your agency to determine the level of service necessary to provide assistance. I highly recommend this. Most local governments, once they've gone through the no-cost technical assistance or a PIA, they have then taken advantage of utilizing the Texas Lone Star revolving loan. When you go through the PIA or the no-cost technical assistance, you have all the information required to apply for the Texas Lone Star revolving loan. And it finances projects that reduce energy, water, utility cost. It's a simple payback period of 15 years or less. It's at a 2.5% loan interest rate, and a 1.5% ARRA fund interest rate. It does require a substantial amount of reporting. So I would make sure that you keep up with all the data gathering that you perform, and you perform for the SECO energy report. Right now, I believe open enrollment, I'll have to double check. It might be open again, and it'll be open until August 31st. So, again, I would highly recommend visiting SECO's website for funding opportunities. And there's a contact right there, Benjamin Tedley. He is a great contact at SECO for different grant opportunities they have. And then I again highly recommend utilizing SPEER's FAQ and our website for all our resources. There's also several resources at the North Central Texas Council of Government on their website through it's called Conserve Texas, but they have a white paper with Texas mandated local government energy reduction goal, the challenges and best practices. They also have a case study for Tarrant Regional Water District, as well as the city of Louisville's energy consumption reduction case study. And we also have a partnership with NCT COG where we have a local government energy reporting toolkit with there's several case studies at that on that website. And then, of course, SPEER, we have resources I've mentioned before, but we also have some other resources regarding like IOU energy efficiency programs. We have the training. We have our YouTube channel with over 100 professional development videos and trainings. And then you can follow us on LinkedIn. We put a lot of information and resources there. And then our monthly newsletter, it covers statewide policy, code, and local government. So you have a focus every week that goes out with a newsletter. Mine goes out on the second Tuesday of the month, and I focus mainly on local government, grants, jobs, and opportunities. Um, Here are some SECO and, of course, my contact information if you'd like to get a hold of me. Our funding is specifically to help local governments and submitting your annual report. So reach out to me. I love data. I love talking data, and I know that change comes from understanding your data, energy, and water consumption. So please reach out. Love to chat. And then also here's some contacts with SECO, and that's Benjamin Tedley, and as well as Justin Gamboa. They're great contacts with SECO. And overall, I just want to say thank you. I have here is our survey. Let me go back to that. Our survey, I'll drop that in the chat. And if you have questions or want trainings regarding building code, you're welcome to reach out to Randy Plumley. You can get a hold of him by emailing cities@eepartnership.org. And there is our website. Thanks so much for joining us today. And I look forward to checking out your report that you submit. Let me go ahead and stop sharing, and I'll toss the survey in there for you guys. If you get a chance, please answer the survey. It helps us with our funding, but also other webinars and resources for you.